Your money is inside a system you've never seen. Your Social Security, your tax refund, your Medicare, a single infrastructure controlling $6 trillion in annual payments holds the financial data of every American alive. And in early 2025, an unelected team walked straight into it. No congressional vote, no public vetting, no authorization anyone in Washington could point to and explain. Congress found out when the court documents arrived, and when they did, the story the government had been telling didn't match what the documents showed. Not even close. This is what happened on February 12, 2025, and this is why no one has fully explained it to you. Most people don't know this system exists. Deep inside the U.S. Treasury Department sits the payment infrastructure that keeps America running. Every Social Security check, every Medicare reimbursement, every tax refund, veterans benefit, disability payment, every month trillions of dollars move through it. It isn't just a government database, it is the financial nervous system of the entire country. Lose it, corrupt it, expose it, and the consequences aren't political, they're immediate. Real people stop receiving money they depend on to survive. The entire payment architecture of the federal government goes dark. That is why this system has layers of protection that most federal systems don't have. Access requires specific clearance, specific authorization, specific oversight. The career civil servants who manage it spend years learning its architecture. It is not a system you walk into, but someone did. And who they sent in, that is the part that stopped the room. In early 2025, DOGE operatives gained access to the Treasury's payment infrastructure, not through a congressional mandate, not through standard security clearance channels, through an arrangement so unusual that the career employees responsible for protecting the system scrambled in real time to understand what legal basis the access was built on. Court documents later described their response as bending over backwards to accommodate what one filing called a highly unusual arrangement. Those are not the words of a smooth, authorized process. Those are the words of people trying to manage something they hadn't been prepared for. And while that was happening, 300 million Americans had no idea. Then the hearing came, February 12, 2025, the first official hearing of the House DOGE subcommittee. The room was loaded before it started. Democrats had been demanding answers for weeks, formal answers, under oath, on the record. Republicans had been blocking every motion to compel them. And the man whose name kept appearing at the center of everything, Elon Musk, was not in the room. He had declined to come. The most powerful unelected figure involved in reshaping the federal government looked at a congressional subpoena request and said no. And the Republicans on the subcommittee made sure he never had to say anything else. Representative Melanie Stansbury, the ranking member, stood up. She looked at the empty space in the room where accountability should have been sitting. And she said it without flinching. Come and testify in front of the American people, under oath, because we want to know what you're up to. Silence followed, not the silence of a room that didn't understand, the silence of a room that understood completely and knew the answer wasn't coming. But Stansbury didn't come with words alone. She came with documents, court documents, filed as part of the legal challenges to DOGE's actions, challenges that were already moving through multiple federal courts simultaneously. These weren't opposition research or political talking points. They were filings submitted to federal judges, containing sworn statements and official records. Democrats had obtained them and brought them to the hearing for one specific reason: to place the official government account directly next to the court record and let the room see the gap between them. Treasury's official account was this: a longtime technology executive had been conducting the review of their payment systems. A senior professional, someone with the experience and credentials to be trusted inside one of the most sensitive financial systems in the world. That was what Congress had been told. That was the framing that had gone out publicly. A responsible, expert-led efficiency review. Then the court record was read aloud. The person who had access to the Treasury's payment systems was not a longtime executive. He was a 25-year-old programmer. He had no formal government clearance history for systems of this sensitivity. He had no documented experience managing infrastructure at this scale. He did not complete the work. He resigned, not because the mission was finished, but because racist posts from his social media history went viral, became public, and made his continued presence untenable. That is who had access to the system controlling your Social Security payment. And the Treasury Department told Congress it was someone else. This is not a clerical error. This is not a miscommunication between departments. This is the executive branch of the United States government providing the legislative branch a material account of events that the court documents sworn, filed, on the federal record directly contradicted. The room shifted when that landed, not into shouting, into something quieter, the kind of stillness that settles over a space when everyone in it arrives at the same conclusion at the same moment. Democrats pressed harder. They had attempted, in the weeks before this hearing, to subpoena Musk, to compel his testimony under oath, to force formal, recorded answers to questions that had been circling without resolution. What exactly did DOGE access inside Treasury? What did they do with what they found? Who authorized each step of the access? And why did the official account given to Congress not align with what the court filings described? Republicans voted to block the subpoena. Every motion, every procedural attempt to establish formal accountability stopped. The people whose constitutional function is the oversight of the executive branch, the people elected specifically to ask these questions on behalf of the public, voted on the record to ensure that the most consequential unanswered questions about access to America's financial infrastructure could not be formally asked, not under oath, not in a setting where the answers would carry legal weight. Consider the number that sat at the center of all of this. Since 2003, the U.S. government has lost $2.7 trillion to fraudulent and improper payments. That is the official, bipartisan acknowledged figure. It was the number that justified the entire DOGE operations premise. The argument was not complicated. The system has hemorrhaged taxpayer money for decades, outside experts are needed to find and stop the bleeding, and the urgency is real. That argument has genuine merit. Waste at that scale is not a partisan fiction. But the outside experts who entered the Treasury system did not come in through a process that Congress authorized. There was no vote that created this access. There was no public confirmation hearing for the people involved. There was no formal chain of accountability that career Treasury employees could consult to understand who had approved what, under what legal authority, with what limits. There was access, and then there were court documents describing how unusual that access was, until a federal judge intervened. The court order blocked DOGE from the Treasury payment systems while the legal questions were adjudicated across multiple jurisdictions. Chairwoman Marjorie Taylor Greene, running the hearing, called that ruling absurd. She said it plainly. A federal judge had blocked the Treasury Secretary himself from accessing his own agency's systems, and that was not acceptable. She went further. Her statement from the hearing, "We will hold this judge and others who try to stop the will of the people and their elected leaders accountable." The elected leaders, the same ones who had just voted to prevent the man running DOGE from testifying under oath, the same ones who blocked every formal mechanism that would have produced answers on the record. Before the hearing closed, Stansbury asked the question that cut through everything else. She was not performing for cameras. She was not building toward a political moment. She was asking something that should not have required asking in a room constitutionally designed to provide exactly what she was asking for. We are a co-equal branch of government. We are in charge of oversight. If you feel like there is no concern here, why wouldn't you want that information out in the public? Why wouldn't you want people to be able to ask questions and get a response? The other side of the aisle had no answer that addressed what the documents showed, no rebuttal that explained the gap between the official account and the court record, no explanation for why a 25-year-old with no formal clearance history was the person Treasury described as a longtime technology executive, no reason stated on the record for why the most prominent unelected figure in Washington could not spend 2 hours answering questions under oath about his team's access to the financial infrastructure of the United States. Just silence, and a vote, and a gavel. The hearing ended. Musk did not testify. The court documents remained in the federal record. The 25-year-old had resigned weeks before anyone in that room said his name in public. And 300 million Americans went home that day, not knowing that the system holding their most sensitive financial information, the one that processes their Social Security payment, handles their Medicare claim, issues their tax refund, had been entered by people Congress never formally authorized to be inside it, not because the story was locked in a classified file, because no one was made to explain it. The documents existed. The court record existed. The contradiction between what Treasury said and what the filings showed, that existed too. All of it was on the table in that room on February 12, 2025, placed there by members of Congress who had done the work of obtaining it, reading it, and bringing it into the public record. The only thing missing was an answer. And in a room full of elected officials with a constitutional authority to demand one, that absence is not a bureaucratic footnote, it is the story. Because the system they accessed is not abstract infrastructure somewhere in Washington. It is the mechanism that determines whether your check arrives this month, whether your refund clears, whether the benefits you paid into your entire working life are accessible when you need them. That system was entered. Congress learned about it after the fact. The people positioned to compel accountability voted not to. And the court documents that revealed the gap between the official story and the actual record, those are still sitting in the federal filing system right now, available to anyone who looks. The question this hearing left open is not whether the access happened. The documents confirm it did. The question is what it means that the branch of government designed to answer that question chose not to. That answer is still being written, in courts, in committee rooms, and in the next round of elections. But what happened on February 12, 2025, that part is already in the record. And now, so are you.